when it came to the second EP, we progressed the Hyperon sound. The first EP was the first step out of the shed of what we've been doing in our little cocoon of music, you know, and raving. The second EP slightly built more on what we'd experienced, a few more production tricks, some more concrete ideas, a more defined area where we wanted things to go. So the second EP had on it A Certain Emotion, which was basically a self-indulgent music piece over 4/4 for myself. It was called Owl's Theme, so I'd written it. You know, so I was a skinny, mixed-up kid, and this reflected that. It was straightforward. Then we also had on there Imagica, which I'll come back to. It's one of my favourite tunes. Also Threshold of Sanity and a great tune called Ascension. The whole title was Ascension brackets to the 9th level. Danny came up with that, and Danny was good at that. He even came up with Hyperon Experience. So Ascension, we'd had the synth riff, the main synth riff that comes in halfway through the tune. We'd had for a while, maybe even a year and a half, maybe something like that. It was a basic synth pattern, but I played it in this really intense way. That I mean, there were no filters, no harmonic enhancement tricks, no compression, no nothing. The sound was just how it was when we sampled it. I think we sampled it off the radio or off you know, like a orchestral album or something. I can't remember where it came from. But originally I had tried hooking it around the classic rave arrangement of synthesizer breakdown with strings, synthesizer breakdown, and then this orchestral stab, and it hadn't quite worked. It wasn't really what I wanted. Neither of us were really into it. We bought some more sample CDs, and on the sample CDs was that spooky intro pad. They're like, let me play some of this. So they have this spooky intro pad that comes in. That really set it off. I felt that really had something going for it that we could use. And all those quirky little sounds that came in, I think they were off a similar sample CD. So those orchestral samples, we put them all together with a few other sounds that we've made. And a beat that I think we stole off Todd Terry or something like that. So when the beat comes in, I mean, that is a hardcore beat. If that happened now, people would say, oh yeah, these people know what they're doing, that's hardcore, let's have it. But this was 1992. This was us doing it at that time. The bass lines are really simple. It isn't like now where we have a lot of dub reggae in the bass lines. This was just really simple, adding the lower end. There's no EQ out of the bass to make the kick sit through. There's loads of hip hop influence. I mean, that's literally off the shelf 80s hip hop ideas. I mean, those were the edits and cuts that you were hearing in nightclubs. People were doing them on crossfades, weren't they? But we were doing them in our beats. And so you go to the first breakdown, and that's a classic rave breakdown. It's got all those classic sort of rave, sort of, I mean, Darude even used that sound in Soundstorm, and that was 10 years later. So great little rolls coming into the end to bring things down. But that only stopped about 8 bars, wasn't it? Nowadays we do 16 bars. And then the tune flows along with just all those traditional sort of ravey stuff. And then there's a slight switch here as we start to introduce the synth sound. It sounds like I put a phaser on there or some sort of chorus. But anyway, the whole tune eventually builds up to the moment that's now about to happen. Yes, my hairs are standing up. Underneath this shirt, my hairs are standing up. So yeah, so this is an intense pattern. Doesn't matter how you describe it. I don't care who you are, that's hardcore. That was really intense. And that's pretty much how we're feeling. I wrote on Facebook that, you know, how did we come up with it? Ascension to the 9th level. It was a kind of an expression that came out of the days when me and Danny went raving. And you know, well, we experienced a lot. And as you got higher, you got to different levels. And maybe this one described that. Maybe that 9th level was somewhere we tried to get to. Maybe it was, I don't know. Actually, it was. It really was. So yeah, that tune was great fun to make. I really, really loved the intensity of that synth pattern. We played around with it quite a few times. In fact, now I'm thinking about it, I can remember playing it. I can remember the importance of how I wanted the notes legato rather than staccato, and how I played it and how I experimented with it, and eventually got it in. And I can remember that. Yeah, I'd like to do that now actually. But you know, if you did something like that, people would call it cheese. The orchestral and choral sounds that came into Ascension. I mean, all those rave stabs were orchestral sounds. All those, if you can imagine a choir, like a 32-piece choir singing in an A, and then you just took a chunk of that, that's that's a rave stab. That's what it was. That's where those sounds came from. So for me, it was only natural to nick more bits of those, and so there was that la 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 la. That bit came in. It just seemed to me an extension of the rave stab. It didn't seem different, because that's where we got the samples from. Let's move some more samples from that. So there wasn't a conscious decision. It just seemed to naturally follow that I'd want that in there. And plus, because there's a lot of energy and drama in those samples. I mean, really, when you take a sample, you're taking the soul and embodiment of another performance, and you're recreating it in your own form. But you have instant off-the-shelf emotions that you just put into your track. So you're chopping and changing emotions that, other people's music that you put together into your own, and recreate a new story from multiple emotions. So for me, it wasn't let's do different. It was an extension of what was already happening. And that's where the choral samples came from. So now we come to the third EP. Now the third EP was there's some great tunes on there. Some stuff I really like. A lot of experimentation. In particular, Time Stretch. Time Stretch for me was a full-on assault on what we could achieve in that rave style. If you listen to that now, there isn't a moment where it gives you a respite. Or I know I was told a story. Some chaps went to Scotland and they hired a castle, and they were all having a very, very good time. And one of them put on the Hyperon third EP and played Time Stretch. And as he was playing Time Stretch and listened to Time Stretch, he imagined that he was off on a trip down an Amazon river. He was quite literally in a canoe going down the river, experiencing this mad experience. And while that happened, he blew up the kitchen because he was cooking at the same time and had left it. So he went from this super in-depth trip down this Amazon river to completely ruining the kitchen just in an instant. And so that tune had a massive effect on him. But for me, Time Stretch just, it was a bit full on. I didn't really hear anyone ever play it out because I really felt it was a bit of a listening hardcore tune. But it was, even now, even though I made it and I knew how it was made, even though we made it and I knew how it was made, I still find it like you have to be prepared to listen to it, because if you know what's going to happen, even to this day, it's hard to keep up with what the tune does. It changes in so many ways, and there are so many key shifts where it's just such an intense feeling. So really, that's what we wanted to capture, and that's what we did. So Time Stretch for me is almost like a pinnacle of what is explorable in regards to the rave stroke happy hardcore breakbeat sound that happened in 92, 93. The Time Stretch just came from the Akai S4000 when it Time Stretch sampled. There was a function called Time Stretch and we used the Time Stretch. It was pretty unoriginal. However, Thunder Grip, which is also on the third EP, that's a different story altogether. I really like this one. I really like this. I really like the way that it grooved. I really like the way it grooves. Let me play a little bit of it. I'm going to skip through.
Do you hear?
It's getting closer, it's getting hyper. But the actual drop, if I can get to the drop, it's getting hyper. So, tunes started with breakbeats. What we didn't know was that these were for mixing. We just thought we had breakbeats at the start of tunes. So we're doing all the editing from these beats that we got. I can remember this beat. I think it came from quite a popular tune that was being played, sort of radio stroke club, and we took the beat. So the intro had all those breakbeats on, which were pretty typical at the time. And we had the string stabs from the shard. But it's when this drop happens, it does it for me. I mean, that's really groovy. It's kind of on the one, really, then the one and the two and the three and the four. It's got a lot of groove and instant, with a little gap at the end. So that really gave us space with Hyperon to put all those little edits and tricks. And again, it's changing every 8 bars, and tunes don't change at 8 bars, you know what I mean? So this for me was a really, really groovy thing to get involved in. That little sound there, that came from 808 state. I can remember that. And the back, that's all from Fat Boys. And this, that was just those pretty knocky bass sounds. We took that, reversed it, added it back together and then looped it round in the archive. lots of hip hop tricks and stuff like that. This one really grew for me. Again, as I listen to it now, I realise it's not 100% dance floor friendly, and I can mix it differently now, but that's 20 years experience. And then back into that classic Hyperon sort of rave stab thing. I mean, the tunes now, it's 2 minutes 10 into the tune and the first drops come. And you think that's the first drop? No, it's not the second drop really either, is it? If you count the intro's in 2 parts. And again, we introduced more ideas, techno ideas coming here. That little stab came from Dimensional Holophonic Sound. Great EP. But Can You Feel It? There's standard samples that happen in the house scene. So we've got Fat Boy samples, 808, standard house, the techno samples, everything all wrapped around breakbeats. And it just goes into an edit fest. The name Thunder Grip came from a guy called Sean. So all these tunes were made in the shed, and the shed was a very, very popular place. At that time I didn't own a house, and it was still owned by my father, and my sister lived there. But access was granted across other people's yards, so people could visit the shed without disturbing my sister. And people would. This happened a lot. By this time we'd actually hired a garage and moved all the rubbish that my father had stored there into this garage. And so there was plenty of space, and although this was an old bathhouse, there was plenty of space, and we'd built a little platform where we put the flight cases, and I put some carpet on there and some plastic plants, and so there was a place where people could come and chill and have a smoke and listen to us make music while we danced around the studio. Because back then, though we didn't use chairs, we just stood up all night. That's what we did. We stood up and we made music, and this guy Sean turned up, and we were making this tune, and he said he'd been working at the top of a crane in the wind and the rain. And back then we didn't have health and safety so much, and he said they developed this grip, they developed this technique for holding on which they called thunder grip. So they were moving along the top of this crane, thunder gripping, and so we took that name and we called it Thunder Grip. Came from this guy who just literally, he came up buzzing, turned up at the studio and man up and up in a crane all day in the rain sorting this out, and so that's where the name came from, Thunder Grip. And Magica was, I told you that I was influenced heavily by what rhythm section were doing, it's particularly in the track Feel the Rhythm. And Magico really was an extension of that. It was a blatant extension of that, plagiarism, even if you like. We'd taken the format of what they did and kind of built on it. Obviously we did it in our own way, and it sounded totally different to what rhythm section did. We introduced all the cheesy samples, the hip hop ideas, the rave stab, and stuff like that. But for me, what I liked about it, it was out and out rave. It was that breakdown which went ba 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 ba. I mean, that is just a joyful little pattern that grooves along really nicely. And the beats were all off Norman Cook. And there's quite a few parts. If you listen to the tune, it's in about 4 or 5 parts where it goes from pure rave to slightly dubby to a really intense vibe, and then back out to the pure rave again. The beats were really skippy and really lively, and we introed it with a little piece of music which had just a lovely little pad and some Corgan 1 sounds. There was like a flute sound maybe, and there's a really cheesy vibe playing a little bit, which was pretty much the only pattern I could play at the time, which then drops to this massive rave sound. Because it was the sound of what we were hearing in the clubs, and the sound that I preferred, that full-on rave orchestral sound. That's what I wanted to make. But the other point of it is that you know, I have a little bit of synesthesia. When I hear sounds, I see colour, shape and move it. They have a definite physical presence in my mind. It's like a three-dimensional, they occupy a three-dimensional area in my mind's eye, if you like, and there is movement, colour and form, and texture. Texture is very important. And the sounds like the orchestral, the rave stabs in Magica, the way that sound, it's a very orange sound. It's a very burnt orange sound with the texture's very weird. It's like a pumice stone almost, the surface of a pumice stone mixed with the ridges of bark, and the attack portions almost like the entry point to a comb. It's very hard to describe, but these sounds filled my mind. The colours were just an all-encompassing, engulfing wash, like you're travelling through a rainbow, a three-dimensional rainbow of colours. And so Magica for me had those colours. It was the colours in my mind embodied in audio, and then these synth sounds. They're the sounds that I heard, and the beats very much worked around with that as well. Very skippy with a lot of top end sparkle. In fact, that tune, when it went to mastering, the mastering engineer changed nothing, and Rob Playford always quoted me. If I mixed something down badly, he'd say, Alex, what's happened? There were days when we didn't have to master your tunes, and I'm like, shut up. So yeah, that tune didn't get mastered. Obviously, it went for the mastering house, but the mastering engineer chose not to alter it. So that tune was mixed perfectly. And we mixed that ourselves in a studio called Purple Rain. Yeah, so the second EP was actually mixed at Purple Rain in Yarmouth, and all these subsequent EPs were mixed there as well. And yeah, so Magica for me was just the most colourful. It was the one that appealed to me emotionally the most. You know, it had the colours that I liked, it had all the colours that I liked. It just seemed to be, no matter what happens, even when I listen to the tune now, there's no point in which I'm not happy with what I've done there. And I find it very hard to listen to my old music, especially early Easy Rollers stuff. I find it very hard. But early Hyperon, well, really for me it's quite a joy to listen to, because it represents a time when, you know, I was discovering music, music was discovering me. I was trying to establish myself emotionally as an adult, which I hadn't done successfully. So it was at that point in my life where a lot of what I defined in myself as a meaning in myself came from the music, and the Magica defined it for me. And the last tune is Laws of the No Lines. Laws of the No Lines, yeah, Goldie loved that. God, he had me up against that. In fact, there was a period back in the early 90s where Goldie just called me No Lines. Oh, here comes old No Lines. I shut it, Goldie, no. I don't know if you met Goldie, man, he's hard work. Anyway, this guy, we did this Laws of the No Lines tune. It made a difference to Hyperon. Why did it make a difference? Well, it's the first tune we did at 160 beats per minute. In fact, the working title, on the front of the floppy, the working title was just 160, because that was the tempo we did it at. And this was quite daring for us. We felt, should we do it this fast? You know, people just speed the tunes up anyway. Should we do it? And we ummed and ahed, and we just did it anyway. So all the samples came from Predator 2. I mean, this was quite influential, because we weren't the only people to use it. There was that one, I'm Scared Now, that was also used by people. And there was quite a few samples taken from there. But we took the first one as well, You Can't See the A's as a Demon, and stuff like that. So we used all that. It was a great film. Now, obviously, they were pretty much the only places you could get samples, either records or from films, so that's where we took it. A lot of Norman Cook samples in there. The breaks at the beginning were good. There's a lot of chop and changey, starty stuff going on there. Let's see if we can find the original one, Laws of the No Lines. Go on. The piano intro. That came from... so I'd heard another tune. I think it was... oh God, what's that one? There was someone who... that one. I wanted to do something like that. I hadn't quite achieved it, but I did that. And it comes in with this kind of looped up sub note, which you might not pick up in that camera but yeah, that sound and all those spooky little sounds. Those sounds I've still used today occasionally. Lots of reverse sort of rises. The vocal samples come in there. But the main thing for me was the way the beats interacted. We just chopped them all up. And there was a lot of intense programming and like off-step kind of grooving. So when the beats come in, you'll see that they do chop and change a lot. So that's a 2-bar ending. Another 2-bar. So it's 2-bar endings all the way through the start bit. So this is an intro to the intro. And that little girl going, "We're gonna rock it," her name was Harriet. She was something like 7 years old. And she sat out in the back of my sister's yard. And I had my little dictaphone machine, and we taped the same Defender samples from a classic game. So yeah, we used her, Harriet. Even to the day, I know her mother. And the mother still says, "My daughter sang on one of your records." Oh yeah, whatever. So we're still in the intro, and it's gone through 2 different sets of intros. You know, we had the cut up, all the laughing from the Predator song, and then ultimately it breaks down to this crazy breakdown with a lion roar and the sound of a stone falling into water, which I loved all those sounds. No one was really using it, but if you listen, who puts a lion roar into a splash? Lots of fun. Ecstasy sample came from Norman Cook into the beat. So this was proper groove. This is about as groovy as hype rock got. Most of our tunes were proper chopped up and a bit naughty. This one still does the same. It keeps on evolving. And in the moment there comes a string sample, I can remember programming it. It sort of drifts in and drifts out, and I remember programming the velocity so it did that. That plays a little melody. I can remember doing that, it's loads of fun. So yeah, nice little groove with the bass line humming along. I can't remember where we got the bass note from, but yeah. And then as the tune progressed, I mean, I'd done a lot of the basics, and Danny came in and started playing all the synthesizers, especially the ones that come in at the end. I mean, why would you do that? I mean, again, that splash and a proper synth line. I mean, that's a pretty intense thing to do. Quite at a juxtaposition to the rest of the tune. But what are those strings doing? So this is an intense thing. This represents the intensity of rave at the time. Another sound, so there's, after 8 bars, the choirs come in. That's a Chord Game 1 choir sample. And then it switches into this little pattern which I think Danny did. Not quite yet, the next time round. Wow, we actually repeated 8 bars. That makes a change. And then a piano comes, a synth sound comes in now, I think. Oh no. So something else happens, obviously. It's hyper-on, so every 16 bars hasn't changed. I mean, that's a classic sort of rave riff. Really working on nicely. Little skips in the drums at the end. Obviously you had to do that. I mean, nothing had happened for 4 bars, you must have changed it. That's quite groovy. I mean, nowadays you'd call this a bridge. Back into that quite intense thing. This is the bit where Danny comes in with that little... I can remember him doing it. I can remember thinking, no, the tune's finished, I want it in there. I don't want it in there. And having a little argument about the very last synth pattern coming. It hasn't come in yet. And I remember thinking, we argued so much about it. I thought, fuck it, leave it in there, I don't care, ruin my tune, fuck it. And now when I listen to it, it's my favourite bit. This bit at the end. And when we went to remixing, Foul Play wanted the remix, we didn't have that sample anymore. It was called Chord Game 1. And we didn't have that sample anymore, and I really gutted that we didn't have it, and everyone kept asking, where's the sample from the end? And it was the bit that Danny put in I didn't like, and now it's the best bit. It's such a lovely sound. The Chord Game 1 mixes so well. There was kind of bright and a lot of upper mid-range without having too much body that we now have to take out of mixes, you know. Lovely tune that ends quite nicely, you know, not just going out to a 32 mix with a crash at the end. You know, this tune was just a tune in itself. I mean, I wouldn't do that now. I simply wouldn't make those tunes now, because if I was making tunes for the dance floor, I would present it in a formula manner. You would need 32 bars at least to mix, maybe 48 or 64, depending on what it is. You would need 48 or 32 bars at the end for someone to mix out on, possibly even if they're going to double drop. So you would formulate your tune now to match that. And back then we didn't, we just made the tunes. There wasn't any formula. I think that really held us back getting dance floor plays because they were hard to mix. There wasn't a point where you say, right, I can drop the one now and it'll just mix out and the tune will break down, there'll be space for the other tune to come in. We didn't do that, we just put more shit in there. So now when I listen back to that, they are tunes in their own right. I mean, you think about it, someone said on the Facebook page for Hyperon, you guys were the Pink Floyd of UK hardcore because of what we did. And although I blatantly would not put myself in the same sentence as Pink Floyd, I just did. Yeah, so yeah, very happy with Laws and No Lines. I'm really happy with the way it came out. A lot of people, for them, that represents the Hyperon sound, but for me, really, the Hyperon sound was the happy hardcore early stuff. But Laws and No Lines was lots of fun. The name comes from high energy physics. Kind of was a hobby of mine, not just high energy physics, but theology, philosophy, stuff like that. You know, mathematics. I'm kind of into stuff like that. I like learning, and I was heavily into high energy physics. And a null line describes the path of a massless object travelling at light speed. The problem with travelling at light speed is that you don't experience time. So if you don't experience time and distance being a measure of speed over time, all distances become zero. So when you look along a null line, the universe has zero size, so all points appear to you at once. So if the universe has no size, does it exist? And that's how we got the name. In fact, we wrote that on the back of a record. I wrote a little piece about how Einstein wrote about it. It was special relativity deals with things that travel at light speed. And so we'd written about this little piece of text about how, you know, when you look along a null line, the universe doesn't exist. And I got a call from some American chappie who was trying to blag some music out of me. And he told me a story about how he had read the back of the record out at a party and 3 people had left. which I thought was quite fitting. Regarding Hyperon's influence or influences on Hyperon and Hyperon's influence on things like happy hardcore and the birth of jungle techno, I always saw myself as jungle techno. The happy hardcore thing took one pigeonhole of jungle techno and expanded it in the same way jungle went off, in the same way music went off. This was the start of pigeonholing. Being Hyperon and being 2.5 hours outside of London and not being in Bristol, we were distanced from the whole hubbub and total media focus that works around new sounds in London or Bristol. You know what I mean? If something happens in London on a Monday, by Friday the whole of London knows about it, and then it's been talked about, and then the world is thinking this is the new sound, because there's so much of a quick focus and media attention. Whereas Hyperon was outside of that. We didn't mingle. It wasn't like we were hanging out with all the DJs and all the other musicians. We weren't. We were just two kids out in the sticks making tunes that we heard at the raves we went to. So the influence wasn't so hard on us. And the happy hardcore thing, although you can trace a lot of what is in Hyperon into happy hardcore, it didn't really affect us. Happy hardcore went full on, almost 4/4 with the synth pads and the squeaky female vocals, and that was fine. That's what that did, and for a while that really worked. I mean, it kind of led on to the whole Gabba thing, and that thing was one area. But I liked beats, I like breaks. That's me through and through. I'm a b-boy at heart, and I like to hear fat beats and heavy snares. So the happy hardcore thing never really was a hindrance to me. The influence of happy hardcore or people's perception on the negativity or positivity of it never really influenced me, because I never heard about it. The only information I had was from magazines like Blues and Soul, NME, and some of the radio shows that we get sent up from London. So really, there wasn't much of an influence. It never really affected us, and I really feel our isolation in East Anglia really helped me, both as Hyperon and as Easy Rollers, and even to this day.